Alright everyone, so today what I want to talk about is habit. I myself have not been doing very good with habits recently. I took a trip to Portland for a couple days, so just, wasn't able to, uh, wasn't able to keep up, my exercise, and I wasn't able to get you guys a video yesterday either. Well, today, technically. It is currently the 10th of June, and I did not work out today, I did not work out yesterday, and I didn't really get too much writing done this week, honestly. I did manage to get some done today because I had a couple hours, so I did, manage to get a couple sections done. But, again, I've just had a lot of stuff going on, so I just haven't had a chance to. So, people wonder, what's the key to success when it comes to fitness, when it comes to really anything, not just fitness, when it comes to learning a language or getting good at art or, something like that. So the really popular sort of, myth is the 10,000 hours myth. And that's, based on the book, that was literally written on that subject. And the thing is that, yes, so the concept behind it is that 10,000 hours of practice is what makes you good. That's about, roughly the average amount of time that you have to spend practicing something before you can become like an elite, level, world master at something. Now, the problem is that if you don't have any natural aptitude for that task, 10,000, no amount of training, 10,000 hours, 20,000 hours, 30,000 hours, that's not going to help. 10,000 hours is a lot of time. It's like 10 years or so. So, of course, the question is, are you putting your 10,000 hours in the right way? Are you actually doing something that you could be good at? And I would recommend, first of all, that if you're not getting, a very quick response from, a certain kind of training or a certain skill you're trying to learn or whatever, if you're frustrated after a few months because you're not really seeing any results, or, after even a year you're not seeing any results, maybe it's time to pick up a new hobby or try something new. That's the simple answer. Do you want to obviously maintain a certain level of skill if, you've already practiced something quite a while? Absolutely. If you realize that you can never be an elite level sprinter, that doesn't mean that you should stop running entirely, because obviously running is going to have a lot of beneficial effects, down the line. But it does mean that you shouldn't be trying to brute force your way through 10,000 hours of running just because you think that it's going to make you some kind of amazing, top level sprinter, because it won't. And the thing also is that if I were to do 10,000 hours literally in a row, or, as close to in a row as possible, versus 10,000 hours spread out over a much longer period of time, chances are that the version that's more spread out is going to be more effective. The reason for that is that we need time to relax and recover. If I was trying to exercise 10,000 hours in a row, 16 hours a day with 8 hours of sleep, and that was it, I'd be dead. Like it wouldn't work out, simply because it's too much. Your body needs to recover in between training sessions, and that means, adequate recovery means, good diet, good nutrition. It means sleeping, as much as you can. It means, not exercising 16 hours a day, but, you have to spend the rest of your day doing, something lighter in intensity so you don't kill yourself. And it's the same with, any skill. There's a certain bonus to simply doing something more regularly than to trying to do a lot of it at once, simply because, you don't get as much out of it, and you have more time to mature and develop in that intervening time span. Like if I squat, 200 times, in one day, versus if I squatted over, say the course of 10 days or 20 days, and, in that time, maybe I've read up some more about, how to squat. Maybe I've tried out some form tweaks. Maybe I've picked up some new things here and there. So chances are that, if I spread it out over 20 days or so, I'm going to get more out of it, simply because I'm going to reflexively learn how to apply my experience, to what I've already seen, and to better myself moving forward, so that in the future I'm going to get more return from my practice. If I were to have trained my entire life at the level that I was at when I first started training and I had no clue what I was doing, I wouldn't be anywhere near, where I am today. But in the time between now and 10 years ago when I first started training, I've learned a crap ton about how to train, and that means that I've gotten much better at, getting the most out of my training so that I'm not spinning my wheels. Now, when it comes to building habit, the number one key thing is to do it every day. I've said this before, I will say this again, I say this so many times. My favorite quote about exercise of all time is from the end of the second season of BoJack Horseman, because he decides that he wants to clean up his act. He decides he's not going to be, as much of a crazy celebrity. He's going to swear off booze and drugs, and he's going to start exercising. And he starts trying to run up a hill in Beverly Hills, and he gets about, 50 feet, and he falls over, in the hot sun, sweating on the side of the road. And, he's like, okay, I'm done. And what happens is that another runner comes by, he's obviously having a much easier time of it, and he stops and he helps pick him up, and he says, listen, it gets easier every day, but the hard part is that you've got to do it every day. And, he says, yeah, or whatever, and then he gets up, picks himself back up, and, starts trying to run again. That encapsulates the single greatest lesson you could ever learn about exercise or about improving any skill. Obviously there's going to be setbacks. Obviously there's going to be days where, maybe you don't want to exercise or can't exercise. Obviously there's going to be days where you fail. There's going to be days where you make missteps, and you're going to feel shitty because, you fucked up, and that happens. But, the people who truly succeed, no matter the level of inherent skill or, whatever that they start off with, the people who succeed are the people who make a habit out of it, and the people who make a habit out of it do a smaller amount every day, or, a smaller amount every other day, or, more frequently than trying to do a lot all at once and burning out quickly and, not getting very far. That's the number one problem that I see with most people, is that they try and take on too much at once to start off with, and then they burn themselves out too quickly. They hate it, and they stop doing it forever, or they stop doing it for a long time, and then they, seesaw back and forth. A lot of training programs that people pick up are not properly, they're not ready for it. They pick up some program like, you pick up Arnold Schwarzenegger's program when you're, a beginner, and obviously you can't handle that. The dude trained twice a day and did all this crazy stuff because he was, he was genetically gifted, and he had been training for, plenty of years before he settled on this training program as the perfect program for him, an elite exerciser. You can't just train the same way that everyone else does, or the way that, the best people in the sport do, and expect yourself to immediately succeed the way they do. It can happen if you're lucky, but 9 times out of 10, what happens is that program isn't a good fit for you. It's not the right, level of challenge for you, and again, you burn out and fall out. And a lot of people try and take too much onto their plate at once. They start running instead of trying to, start walking, and they try and change too many things at once. And sometimes there's absolutely some virtue to be said for that, because sometimes people are stuck in a very specific set of habits, and if you try and make small changes to it, they're just going to go, these small changes aren't going to take, and they're just going to go back to, the way it was. But most people, they tend to work best like that. They put small changes on. Those small changes add up over time until suddenly, you've got a completely new, different set of habits, and that set of habits is, you are the sum total of your habits. Always. You are whatever you've been doing for the last 10 years. And yeah, you can absolutely change. You can absolutely, become a new person, but you have to understand that sometimes if you've got 10 years of, if you've got 10 years of bad diet, or 10 years of, no exercise, or whatever, just 10 years of inertia behind you in a certain direction, you can't expect yourself to suddenly snap back in the other direction. You have to take it slow. You have to do it, day by day, and you have to just, work from there. That's the biggest thing. And I'll say that from my personal experience, what I see a lot is that a lot of people, they they're going pretty well for a few months. They're managing to hold it on for a few months. And typically what happens is that after about a month or two of doing something, that's when it really starts to take. That's when it gets easier and easier. And let me tell you, it gets, it goes downhill from there, like once, like for example, me, like nowadays, like I feel weird if I don't work out, and there were certainly days I remember back when I first started when I was in pain every time I did a leg day, and I was, like cursing myself and wondering why I was doing this. Nowadays, I certainly don't get nearly as sore. And nowadays, I also, I train a lot harder than I ever used to at the same time. So yeah, a lot of people, it takes about, a month or two to really develop a habit, to really, start to get where, it gets a little bit easier. But the problem is that a lot of people hit a black hole or, a point, maybe 3 or 4 months out where they just really fall off. Things just aren't working out for them. They're not, it's just not clicking the way it once used to. And that happens with a lot of training programs too. Like, I'm getting towards the end of my bulking program and I'm already getting kind of bored of it, Any training program, you'll get bored of after, a few months. And at that point, it's necessary to switch stuff up. It's necessary to, try some new stuff. It's necessary to, maybe, just push your limits a little bit. And as long as you can get over that little hump that happens, that's when you typically are able to just kind of stick it out long term, which is to say nearly indefinitely, if not indefinitely. And yeah, fitness is just like any other skill. You have to practice it. You've got to add up little bits here and there until you get something much bigger. And it's silly to try and do a crap ton of work at once and expect that to help. I'll tell you a story, because I used to do, I had a different YouTube channel. No one ever paid attention to it. It's defunct. I didn't really do much with it. But I had this idea to try and do as many kettlebell swings as I could do in one day. I thought this was super cool, and I would film, as much of it as I could. I would, put it in fast forward, and, I would show this video of me, working out for like 16 hours, not 16 hours straight, but, 16 hours on and off. And what I did was I set up my computer, with, I can't even remember which show I was watching at the time, but something. And I got my 35-pound kettlebell, and I did as many swings as I could do, in a row. And then I would rest for a bit, and then I would do a bunch more swings, and then I would rest for a little bit, and so on. And I did this all day. I went for about 13 hours. I came out with about 7,500 or so swings. I've been aiming for 10,000, so I was a little bit disappointed. But by that point, even though I had been, drinking Gatorade and, caffeine and whatever all day, I was just exhausted. I was just, totally burnt out. And I went to bed after 13 hours, after being awake for 13 hours, and I woke up the next day and my hamstrings were demolished. Like, my hamstrings were so sore that I just, I couldn't do anything without being in massive pain. And my hamstrings were sore for about 6 or 7 days, which, is a lot. Normally you're sore for about 3 days. So I couldn't do much of any leg work for a week. And, I couldn't even get around the house or, go to work, really. And the best part about this story is that I love kettlebell swings. I fucking love kettlebell swings. They're a great fucking exercise. I couldn't do a kettlebell swing for like 6 months afterwards. Just because it was so, I didn't ever want to do a kettlebell swing again. And that's exactly what happens when people try and do too much too quickly. To everybody, not just to me, not just to beginners. Even elite athletes or exercisers can hit that point, absolutely. And I think it's just a perfect example of why you shouldn't do that sort of thing. Focus on building small habits. Focus on letting those small habits roll and roll and roll and accumulate until you've got a rock slide, until you've got an avalanche, until you've got a huge massive set of habits going on. You've changed your life. That's what you should be focusing on. So, I hope you like this video. As always, like, comment, share. Tell me what you want to see in future videos. And, yeah, have a good night.